Alright guys, welcome back to another video. I found another really good video called How to Land a Cessna with Gary Wing from 8 years ago. I really like this video. I wish I could make videos like this. I think what I'm going to do is once this channel gets monetized and we get some passive income in here, I'm going to get a GoPro and I'm going to rent a plane at my local airport. I think it's like 135 bucks an hour. And I'm going to create videos like this because I love these videos and they're so helpful. So without further ado, this is from Gary Wing. I'll leave a link in his link in the description below. And if you guys want to help out the channel, we're about 120 away from 1,000 subscribers. So if you guys can subscribe, it would help a lot. All right, I know this kind of seems a little bit redundant to break down somebody's breakdown, but I just can't help it. This is such a good video, and I believe that I can provide some input. Not to like counter this guy or anything, but to be like, oh, also, this is what I noticed at this point in time. This is how I do this and how I do that. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and watch this video.
All landings. That means the nose is going to be slightly up, the tail slightly down. If you fly the right airspeeds, don't worry, you're not going to ding the tail on the runway. They figured that out. You don't have enough elevator authority if you nail your airspeeds. Any extra airspeed that I bring to the runway, I'm going to have to dissipate before I let the wheels touch unless I land too fast. Now, I'm way high. I can see the two whites, so I'm using power to control that, and I'm getting...
So this is one of the big mistakes I see students make. If they're too high and they have too much speed, what do? A new student will apply back pressure, but the problem with applying back pressure is that you'll blow your glide slope. Think about it, you have energy. You apply back pressure, you're going to balloon up and you're going to raise above that glide slope. So you have to reduce power instead of pitch.
Get the pitch dialed in.
And if you're a little fast, you can, if you understand the region reverse command good enough, you can increase back pressure while reducing power at the same time. The problem becomes when you have too much airspeed in there and you apply back pressure without reducing any power.
Using the airspeed indicator, and right there looks good at 60. We've got 5,000 feet of runway. There is a little bit of wind here today. I'm starting to lose some altitude.
Where is bro flying at? He looks like he's flying into like Fallout, New Vegas or something.
Get a little sink, so I'm going to bring some power in.
Okay, this is another big problem that I see with newer students is that when they feel that sink, they don't really know what to do. But the remedy for that, the antidote, is to add power, okay? It doesn't need to be a lot. Well, it depends on the sink, but my point is once you add that power, get it to bump you up. So we're coming down like this, right? We notice that we get a sink, add that power, put yourself back up, and then you'll probably have to reduce that same amount of power back out. So I see people, they're like, oh, they catch the sink, they add power. Great. But then they don't take it out, and then we get fast when we get high.
So we get down to the runway. We got 5,000 feet of runway. We bring our power back.
Okay, notice how he's not rounding out early. Another mistake that I see students making is that they run out way too early because they're anticipating the runway, when actually you should be using that or flaring or rounding out, whatever you want to call it, about 5 to 6 feet above the runway. I'd say about 3 to 7 is like a sweet spot. And notice how he pulls his power out slowly. If you pull your power out quickly and you don't apply the proper amount of back pressure, you're going to sink really, really quick. All right, so what I notice is that students are coming in for a landing, they're maintaining a certain amount of back pressure, and they just yank power to idle, and then the nose drops down. So notice how he's reducing that power very, very slowly. Not like so slow to the point to where he's landing with power, and he's just pulling out power a little bit more slowly. Remember, aviation is about finesse. Move like water. You don't yank out the power because that's going to change how the airplane is flying, but you can pull it out slowly and apply the proper amount of back pressure simultaneously.
To idle, and then we just hold it off. There's the stall buzzer. The airplane's on the ground.
Ooh,
so we're a little under maximum gross weight today, so we're going to use a final approach airspeed of 60. We're a little under.
Okay, so going back right here.
5,000 feet of runway.
Right, so look,
we bring our power
is
back
coming
to idle.
Back to idle, and he starts rounding out very, very slowly. Look how subtle these movements are, okay? It's not a lot. You're not yanking back on the yoke. It's just subtle.
Just hold it off.
And he holds it, and you maintain a good pitch attitude, and you just hold it. And then you may need to apply a little bit more back pressure. and a little bit more back pressure, and a little bit more back pressure. But all these movements should be subtle and finessed.
There's the stall buzzer.
Crosswind correction.
The airplane's on the ground. So we're a little under maximum gross weight today, so we're going to use a final approach airspeed of 60. We're going to pitch for that and do one last gumps check.
Gumps check. This is going to be huge. So gas undercarriage, mixture propeller, seat belts. It's a big deal, of course. You should be doing it in a single engine airplane, but really it becomes a super big deal when you fly complex aircraft. Like I'm flying the multi-engine right now, the Piper Seminole, and if you don't do your gumps checklist and you missed the undercarriage part and your wheel's not down, your gear's not down, you're going to have a bad day. Okay, so get used to this now.
And as the airspeed comes in, we'll work it over to center line. You can see the wind socket. There's a little bit of a right crosswind today, so we may need to lower that right wing. It's a little bit of sink right here at the very end here at Borrego. We've got the airspeed nail. We've got our aiming point. It's right off the nose. And then we get down here. We're slowly bringing power to idle. And then we look down the runway about 5 stripes. Just hold.
Yep, look down the runway. I always tell my students, when you're brand new, you're kind of just like hyper-focused on what's right in front of you. Look down the runway. You don't need to look all the way at the end, a mile down the runway, but just generally look in front of you.
It off as long as we can. Wait for the stall buzzer. Dissipate that energy. Keep it on center line. A little bit of a right crosswind. Let it land on the right wheel first.
Not the biggest fan here of him not keeping his hand on the throttle because you never know when you're going to be able. You never know when you're gonna have to do a go around. So I would not take my hand off the throttle here.
Let it land on.
Maybe it's because he has crosswinds.
The right wheel.
He needs a little bit more assistance. I'm not really sure.
First, and then full right aileron. When we get down to the runway, it's important that you look at the right place. We're aiming for that aiming point as the first step. When we get down to the aiming point, then you got to look down at least 5 stripes. Each stripe and the space between it counts as 200 feet. So that's about 1,000 feet down the runway. Look down the runway about 1,000 feet. Don't move your head like this, but pop your eyes back and forth.
Yep, don't move your head.
If you find yourself flaring too high and dropping it in, well, that's an indication that you may be looking too close to the airplane.
Yep, that is. So whenever I'm coming in for an approach with my students and we enter the round out phase, I always say eyes forward. Like, don't be looking at the asphalt because I don't want them to look right in front of them because they end up flaring too high.
If you fly it right into the ground, well, maybe you're looking too far away. There's some books that say look at the far end of the runway, but quite honestly, that's a mile away. You need to look a little bit closer, kind of like you're looking for an address in the car. We get on final, we try to nail that airspeed, get a little closer to 60. It's a right crosswind. We want to factor for that as we get down here to the runway. And here
fight for center line all the way down. This is something I see students doing, is that they're so focused on the airspeed and their power that they kind of just give up center line. But the problem is when you give up center line, you have to do like S turns to get it back. And when you do S turns, you're bleeding off energy and you actually get slower. And then it becomes like this pendulum effect where if the center line's right here and they're over here and they overcorrect, and then the oscillations between center line get worse and worse. So the sooner you get center line, the better, okay?
Here comes our aiming
Don't let that slide.
point. So now my eyes are clicking down the runway, and I'm keeping it on center line, fighting for directional control. Power comes to idle, and I hold it off and dissipate that energy.
Cool. Another thing I want to mention right here, too.
And I'm keeping it on center line, fighting for directional control. Power comes to idle.
So see how his nose is yawing to the left? He's going to input right rudder here. But my point is you have those left turning tendencies once you get to a low power and you increase your angle of attack that are going to want to yaw you to the left. You should always have a certain amount of right rudder in here. I never land without putting in right rudder. My foot is pretty much always on the rudder pedals. So a mistake that I see students making is that they can have a great approach, their speeds look good, but if they don't get that right rudder in, you're going to land side loaded, okay?
Idle, and I hold it off and dissipate that energy. There's the stall buzzer. The nose wheel is still off. Slowly bring that down, and that's the way you land a Cessna. Now, in keeping with the visual theme here, you need to be able to see the runway at least when you begin the flare. So you notice I've got my cameras up high so that you can see them in the video. If you can't see over the nose of whatever airplane you're flying, you got it on final, you either need to find another airplane or a taller seat. Don't be ashamed to use a seat cushion.
Yeah, this is something I noticed too with like shorter students, is that they're ashamed to use the seat cushion. I'm like, who cares? Like, who cares if you get to use a little booster seat? Do you want to see the
I carry one around for students that are vertically challenged because you need to be able to see over the nose of the airplane. On this one, what I'm going to do is intentionally bring
All right,
too
last
much
one.
airspeed to the runway. I'm going to bring full flaps in.
Another thing too that I see students messing up on is, I know this is all, I keep saying that it's just a thing. I see students messing up on this. I see students messing up on this. I do. This is what I do for a living. I see this every single day. So, and also I'm assuming that you're watching this because you're trying to learn how to land. Okay, so the best way to learn sometimes is by learning from mistakes, right? But what I was going to say, okay, so coming in on final, I noticed that students get so focused on the final approach and the speeds that they actually forget to put in the 30 degrees of flaps. Now you may be saying, oh, that's not me. I don't do that. Okay, you may not forget to put in the 30 degrees flaps, but you definitely wait too long. So I always tell my students, don't hesitate to put in don't hesitate to get to the 30 degrees, because what they do is they turn base to final. They have 20 degrees and they start locking in their glide slope. And I'm like, you're locking in on a glide slope that is going to change, and your airspeeds are going to change because you haven't put in 30 degrees of flaps yet. So they lock in, they have their approach, and they're like, oh yeah, 30 degrees of flaps, and then they blow their glide slope or they sink or whatever.
I come down to the runway here, and then I try to land right here. The airplane's merely going to take off again. It just wants to fly.
Yep. This is every single day. I have someone that comes in with a little bit too much energy. They anticipate their runway, and this is a huge balloon. He's doing this just to exaggerate and to like make a point. But I see this every single day. You come in with too much energy, you apply that back pressure, and the plane says, nope, I'm not done flying, and then it floats away.
It doesn't want to land, and now I'm in no man's land. I've got full flaps and very little airspeed. That's a bad thing. What you need to do is go around.
Yep. Go around.
I'm looking at my aiming point. I got my airspeed dialed in. I've got full flaps. I've done my gumps check about 3 times, and I'm going to nail that airspeed. I'm coming right in for the 8. That's not where I'm going to land. That's where I'm going to begin my round out. As I come over the threshold, I can bring the power back slowly to idle, and then I'm looking down 5 stripes, and my eyes are clicking back and forth on the left and right. There's the stall buzzer. Work it down a little lower. Hold it.
Let me know what you guys think about this moment right here where he doesn't have his hand on the throttle. I'm not really sure. I think this is a habit that he's kept in here, and I don't know. But I always tell my students, I'm like, do not take your hand off that throttle, because if you need to do a go around after a bounce or something, or there's a coyote in the runway, you need to be quick, and every second counts. So I don't know why he's taking his hand off the throttle here, but nonetheless, I would say this video is overall good. I want to hear your guys' opinions on this. I would say this is a good landing video. I love that he was demonstrating this and had all these nice camera views and stuff like that. But yeah, pretty well done video. I like this Gary Wing. All right, I'll link it below. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one.